This act shall take effect immediately.
The clerk will record the vote. Mr. Kaminsky to explain his vote.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today encouraged by this step forward, but also disappointed that we're not doing more. We are in the midst of an unprecedented wave of corruption. We've all felt it. We've had leaders of both houses, majority and minority leaders, 4 of the last 5 in the Senate. We can go on. And I do not think that this bill is commensurate with the level of distrust that members of the public have. But we have to be encouraged when we take any positive steps forward, especially since we're the only house taking any steps forward. That being said, we are still leaving the fundamental problem out there, which is that somebody can direct business to a legislator's law firm because that person wants to influence he or she when that person wants a grant for their organization or wants to get certain legislation passed. And allowing that to continue, I think, is a mistake. You know, there are only certain few ways that anybody can be corrupt, right? You could take money, you could make up receipts, you could direct money to an organization that really doesn't do anything, and one of the fourth is outside income. 7 people have been convicted involving their outside jobs. Why we would want to leave this open, obviously, is a mystery to me. Our campaign finance system still will require us, even after this bill, to spend hours and hours fundraising in large amounts, which will still mean that special interests and the rich will call the tune of what goes on up here in Albany. And we did not address tougher penalties, giving more authority to government watchdogs, to local district attorneys' offices, to make sure that we have more transparency. And yes, pension forfeiture needs to be taken up immediately. I am happy that we're taking a small step forward, but it's time that we stop taking small steps and start taking great leaps. I'm voting yes, but let's continue to do more, and let's do it now. Thank you.
Mr. Kaminsky in the affirmative. Ms. Peoples-Stokes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to explain my vote. I, first of all, certainly want to commend the Speaker and the Majority Leader and all of our colleagues who have put forth ideas on this piece of legislation. You know, I will say, as a member who's been here for a decade plus a couple of years, not many have gone by where we have not voted on some sort of ethics reform or the other. And so I look at this year as another year to add on to that opportunity. And I'm almost confident, Mr. Speaker, that in the future we will be voting for and considering additional ethics and rules reform, mostly because we represent and we serve a constituency who literally doesn't trust government. They may trust the person that they elected, and they may really like the person that they elected, but they don't necessarily trust government. Government is supposed to serve the needs of the people, and it often does not do that. And it breeds the distrust in our constituency. So I feel like we need to continue passing these ethics laws, and I feel like I'm certain that we will have to pass some more in the future. With that, Mr. Speaker, I cast my vote in the affirmative.
Ms. Peoples-Stokes in the affirmative. Mr. Phillips-Steck.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I think the comments by all members of the body have been outstanding. I do want to point out that I agree with the idea that all the money that we spend should be transparent. I agree with the comments that the outside income is not the problem. The problem is leveraging. People using their public position to get outside income that they did not earn. We are trying to address that. The limits on outside income per se perform very little function. I would note that in order to be a member of Congress, you have to be a millionaire fundamentally. I do not think we want this body to be comprised only of millionaires or people with wealthy spouses. So I think as long as the income is earned in an ethical manner, there is nothing wrong with people having outside income, unless, of course, we went to a full-time legislature, in which case I would certainly propose that the members be paid the same as Supreme Court justices, because those people who make the laws should not be paid less than those who misinterpret them. Thank you.
Well, all right, Mr. Steck. Ms. Glick.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity to explain my vote. I actually think that a number of the colleagues who have left this body in a less than voluntary fashion have done so in part because of their outside income. And as one of the many, many, many members here who does this full time and has never quite understood how one can do the job fully if one is not completely committed to it, I also understand that you couldn't possibly raise a family at this point after so many years with no increase in the compensation. And I'm of mixed mind as to whether or not it is helpful to have people with other experiences be part of the body and therefore help inform us on particular issues which they may have specialized knowledge about. But that being said, I am concerned that the way in which we've arrived at the outside income limit is concerning. It does seem as though it is, if one does the math, it is almost equivalent to what we currently make as legislators, and therefore one's divided loyalty, if you will, does not seem to have been addressed. And so while I support many of the provisions, and I'm happy to vote for this, and I believe I agree with one of my colleagues who said it's a first step, not the last step, I am concerned that the outside income limit will be hard to explain to some individuals who believe that we should be doing this on a more full-time basis. I withdraw my request and vote in the affirmative.
Ms. Glick in the affirmative. Ms. Malliotakis.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'll be supporting this legislation today, but we need to be mindful that this is just a step and not the solution. We've been here for 3 months. We have not yet taken up the issue of pension forfeiture. We have 3 months to go in session. And in order for us to get it on the ballot for 2018, we need to pass this House and as well as the next incoming legislature. And a matter of fact, it should be on the ballot this year in 2016, but we failed as a body to adopt it back in 2014. And so it continues to be pushed. The can is being kicked down the road again. If we don't pass it this year, we're looking at 2020 now. And I think it sends a terrible message to our constituents, to all the taxpayers of the state, that elected officials that are convicted of crimes are sitting in jail collecting their tax dollars, our tax dollars, that we also pay, in the form of pensions. Since I've been here, the 5 years that I've been here, I've seen 16 of our colleagues in both houses either indicted, convicted, and forced to resign. And so I think that's the first critical step that we need to take following this legislation. The taxpayers deserve to have a voice on this issue. We have to make sure that this gets on the ballot in 2018. Additionally, I just want to point out also that we still have to take up rules reforms in this House. Limiting the power of the Speaker, placing term limits on leadership, equal staffing allocations for all the members so we're not beholden to someone else to make sure we get more money for staff or for our office or for discretionary funds. Also requiring that transparency of our committee votes are online so the constituents can see how we vote on every bill. And then, of course, requiring that democracy is allowed to take place in this House, and that if we have 76 sponsors of a legislation, that it needs to come to the floor for a proper debate, discussion, and a vote. We shouldn't allow one person to have the power to prevent legislation that is supported in a bipartisan effort that has 76 sponsors to not come to the floor for a vote. So I hope to work with all of you to add those reforms to this bill as well. Thank you.
Ms. Malliotakis in the affirmative. Mr. Levine.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So we do some good things today. The public knows that they have a right to be fearful that we will adopt public policy based on the influence of those who butter our bread. The public knows that our allegiance must be solely to the people of the state of New York. Secondly, while we didn't discuss it too much today, this bill seeks to, and if enacted into law, will cure a very odd opinion from the Joint Commission on Public Ethics that, in effect, inhibits free speech before editorial boards. Finally, the LLC loophole, which we've only had since 1996, we adopted it because of a Federal Elections Commission opinion that was changed 3 years later. We certainly know that there is a great danger to the influence of money and power when it comes to us making public policy. The LLC loophole provides a legal way for the very, very rich to be able to purchase more political influence than they deserve. Political influence should be shared by each citizen of the state of New York. In his 1905 message to Congress, Theodore Roosevelt, who, shameless plug for my district, whose home, Sagamore Hill, is in the 13th Assembly District, and he was the first to be able to enact laws curbing campaign finance horrors. He said, "There's no enemy of free government that is more dangerous and more insidious than the power of big money." And he said, "We must condemn the perception that the dollar speaks more loudly than the vote." So what we're doing here today is entirely consistent with a great tradition of former member of the New York State Assembly, former governor of the state of New York, and great president. And finally, I want to commend everybody for the civility shown. This is a time we need civility. This has been a good discussion. I'm delighted to vote in the affirmative.
Mr. Levine in the affirmative. Mr. Cahill.
I know that paid you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, I rise today to acknowledge this good work and the good work on the part of the Speaker in putting this package together at a time when the public is clamoring for Albany to do something, not nothing. We read the headlines over the weekend of various good government groups saying there's a silence taking place in Albany. There was no silence in this House. We were working diligently to arrive at a package of legislation that you're seeing manifest here today, and I think this is an important step forward. We may believe that our primary responsibility is this, that, or the other issue that we face. Maybe you think the most important thing you can do here is to deliver education aid. Maybe you think the most important thing you can do is to make sure you get the money to get the roads fixed in your district, or get money for a stadium, or to make sure that this interest or that interest is protected. None of those matter if we don't have the faith and trust of the public. And let's admit the sad truth that we've lost the faith and trust of the public. I'm going to say before I cast my vote, this will not fix that. This law, any law, will not fix that. The only thing that can fix it is our own good behavior. So, Mr. Speaker, I just have 2 words for my colleagues, and then I'll withdraw my request. Just be good. I withdraw my request and vote in the affirmative.
Mr. Cahill in the affirmative. Mr. Goodell.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm voting against this bill because I think it's fundamentally wrong to make it illegal for anyone who's successful in the private sector to be a member of this legislature if they're successful. And I don't think that's the right way to go. And I'm also frustrated, though, that this bill does so little to address the real issues. And we've heard about them. You know, we have crazy, crazy rules that govern us here in the legislature, right? If you go to lunch with 5 lobbyists, they can't buy you lunch because that's unethical. But they can each write you a check for $4,000. That's okay? Can't buy you lunch, but can give you 20 grand. Really? When I was first elected, I almost got in ethical problems. I hate to confess this in a public setting, but my office was a wreck, so I announced at a Rotary meeting I was looking for used furniture that people could donate to the state. And when I called the state to find out how they make a donation to the state of New York, I was told it'd be unethical because it'd be considered a bribe because I might use that furniture. I said, well, could they donate to my campaign? Well, of course. And could my campaign lend it to my office? That'd be very generous. Really? And so we talk about somebody who might come to this legislature that makes too much an outside income, but we don't ban contributions from lobbyists who are in our office asking us to vote for something. We don't ban contributions from special interests who are in our office asking us to vote for something. We don't do any rules reforms to make sure that our committees are open or that our committee votes are recorded. We don't talk about pension forfeiture. And yeah, I'm sensitive to the fact that several of my colleagues have been arrested and convicted. By the way, that was for unearned income. Let's focus on the real issues and stop wasting time banning successful people from serving in the legislature. Thank you.
Mr. Goodell in the negative. Thank you, Mr. Goodell. Mr. Saladino.
Thank you. I rise to explain my vote, Mr. Speaker. Today, we've crossed another threshold, recognizing as we sit here in the New York State Assembly chamber that there are three priorities. My three priorities, hopefully your three priorities. Ethics reform, and ethics reform. This bill is a step in the right direction because it will reinstate the faith that people must have in government for us to work successfully and honestly. It will make sure that we keep an eye on things. Are there improvements that can be made? Can this bill be made better, more fair, give people an opportunity to raise their families in a way that they can afford here in the state of New York? Of course. We heard those ideas during the debate. So we should go forward and pass this legislation, embrace the important ethics reform that we must deliver to the people of New York, and then come back and make it better and bring the amendments you heard today to improve upon things so that we can have the height of ethics and the height of a clean situation to conduct business. I'm here to support this legislation. I hope all my colleagues do that, but I do hope that we continue to revisit this issue to make it better, safer, more honest, and bring the ethics reform that the people of the state of New York deserve. That's why I'll be voting in the affirmative. Thank you.
Mr. Saladino in the affirmative. Mr. Benedetto.
Thank you. To explain my vote, Mr. Speaker, I will be voting yes on this proposal. There are many good things in it, but I must take issue, and I'm very concerned with the salary, the job requirements and how much you can earn outside. What are we doing by this in reality? We're restricting many, many good people who can add such and be such an asset to this body, and we're just excluding them. I don't know what we're doing. We keep on doing knee-jerk reactions every time somebody mentions a proposal like this. And now we've got to do something about it. And listen, so many of us have been 5 years here, 10 years, 15, 20, and more. And we haven't been indicted. We're good people. We want to do the business of the people of the state of New York, and the vast majority of us are doing that. Yeah, there are some bad eggs who passed through here and did some embarrassing things to us. Well, there were laws, they were caught, they're gone, and we continue. As one of our previous colleagues said, let's just be good, let's continue to do our work, and let's stop reacting to these proposals that come up periodically that force us to make so-called ethical changes in our laws. Do you really believe that this is going to end bad behavior in this body and in the chamber across the way? It won't, but then there'll be another knee-jerk reaction to some other proposal. Let's get good people in this body, and we won't have the problem. Human nature will prevent that event, unfortunately, and so we will have more people who will dishonor us. That is unfortunately the way of the world, and we are going too far. Again, I vote in the affirmative. Thank you.
Mr. Benedetto in the affirmative. Mr. Fitzpatrick.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to explain my vote. I just want to say thank you to one of my colleagues, the gentleman from Staten Island who wanted to ask me to yield. He did correct a mistaken interpretation I had of the election law, but it doesn't change what I had to say, and that is by putting limits on LLCs and corporations, the goal is to prevent someone from spending money against you. And frankly, his correction of my misinterpretation just quite frankly strengthens my resolve in voting no, because I was the victim, you might say, and free speech and it's politics, but super PACs. And when you're the number one target of a couple of unions and a couple of interest groups, so be it. But if we're going to put limitations on LLCs and corporations, then why don't we put limitations of $5,000 on everyone? You want to be fair, you want to do the right thing. As the previous speaker said, nothing we do today in this legislation would have changed what happened to the former Speaker of this House and the former Majority Leader of the Senate. So what's fair is fair. If you want to have parity, if you want to have true reform, then put limitations on everyone. That would be fair. 5,000 for corporations, then it should be 5,000 for unions as well. Let's not penalize success. We need people who bring a richness of experiences, transparency, full disclosure. There are ways to solve these problems. This does not do that. Thank you.
Mr. Fitzpatrick in the negative. Mr. Buckwall to explain his vote.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's been said by some that this bill goes too far. I just want to convey my sentiment that this bill doesn't go far enough. In part, it doesn't go far enough because I think potentially the prospects for this bill actually becoming law are still quite minimal. I don't believe there's any part of this bill that, in fact, the other body of the state legislature, the state senate, has embraced. I urge them to do so. And I do believe that we have to demonstrate for the people of New York that we actually are going to change laws, not just propose or pass bills in one house. But this is definitely a step forward. It puts the Assembly on record as being in favor of some absolutely necessary changes. The other reason I want to disagree with those who think that if a bill won't end all ethical violations, then it isn't worth doing. It's certainly true that we could pass every great law and still have folks who violate their oath of office, who deserve public condemnation. But if we pass any law that has an opportunity to reduce the number of folks who take advantage of abusing their office, who might give people a chance to think twice before they put their own personal interests ahead of those of the public, then it's a law worth passing. And this bill takes some small steps in the right direction. It's worthy of broad support. And indeed, I see, based on the current vote tally, right now only 4 members of this body are registered in the negative. I think that speaks volumes of the fact that New Yorkers, the people we represent, are demanding change, and we do need to see it happen, and today is a step in that direction, so I vote in the affirmative.
Mr. Buckwall in the affirmative. Mr. Ramos.
Mr. Speaker, I support this bill. I think it finally starts to address some of the issues that we've been dealing with here. And, all of us, when we made a decision to public service, I think everybody in this room here has made some kind of sacrifice and has realized that we have to make some compromises in life in order to dedicate ourselves to public service. It comes with the territory. So I proudly support this bill. What I would like to mention and comment on is that we've heard over and over again about how this bill will deprive this body of highly qualified people, of these successful people who've had successful businesses, and that we are depriving talent from coming here to the assembly. And it's almost a kind of a blind, psychotic statement. I guess poor people couldn't possibly be highly qualified to come here, or somebody who lived his life on the bottom of the economic ladder and was able to rise to leadership in a community, maybe not make much money, but was able to have the confidence of a community to be able to get voted in to come here. That person, I guess, is not worthy. It's wealth equals competence, I guess, in the eyes of some. I don't believe we're depriving this body of anything, and I proudly support this bill.
Mr. Ramos, in the affirmative, Ms. Bichat.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for allowing me to explain my vote. I rise to support this bill. I must say that when I ran for public office, I did so in the hopes that the people would trust me in the work for the people. And I truly agree that this bill is the first step in the right direction in addressing that we need to reform campaign contribution, in closing the LLC loophole, as well as reforming outside income. Before I was a legislator, I had three different careers. I was a math teacher, I was an engineer, and I was a Wall Street banker. Now, I gave all that up because it was a decision for me to make. My decision was to work for the people. I came into this office knowing and expecting that this would be a full-time job with the salary that it comes with. This particular job does not limit successful people. I was successful, and I decided to take on this job. We had a mayor in the city of New York who's probably one of the richest person in the world. He decided to take on a public office and run the city of New York. So when I hear these comments, again, I don't think it's in the right context. So I just want to say that I support this bill. I think it's in good direction. We need to gain the trust of the people of the state of New York, and that's why we're elected to do so. It is the New York value. Thank you. I vote in the affirmative.
Ms. Bichat, in the affirmative. Mr. Morelli to close.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I request permission to abstain in order to explain my vote. I want to, first of all, thank everyone for their participation in this discussion. And I recognize that there are very substantive issues to discuss today and real philosophical differences at times. But I very much appreciate everyone's participation, whether you agree or disagree with the elements and the provisions of the bill. And I also note that in addition to the outside income, as others have said, there are provisions here which clean up the LLC loophole, that reform the use of dark money, that require greater disclosure by those who participate in the political process, and reform housekeeping accounts, all of which are very, very positive developments and in my mind, argue for the bill. But I also appreciate the concern for constraining members' activities. And I come down ultimately in this regard, that I consider it a great honor and a privilege to serve the people of my community in the state legislature. And I believe, however, it does come with some sacrifice. Those of us who serve recognize not only a sacrifice of time, but also a sacrifice in terms of what it constrains us to do in activities not related to our public responsibilities. But for me, at the end of the day, it is a small price to pay to not only regain some of the public trust which we have lost, but in order to safeguard the interests of the 19 million people who are blessed to call New York home. With that, Mr. Speaker, I remove my request and vote in the affirmative.
Mr. Morelli in the affirmative. Are there any other votes? Announce the results.
Ayes 137, noes 4.
The bill is passed. Mr. Morelli.